Hey, everybody. Hi. Hello. Interesting. I had okay, can everybody hear me all right? I hope so. I look like I'm part of the quilt. That's really funny. Up until a few minutes ago, I had a different quilt to start out with. So, hang on. I'm going to put something on. Just a second. Let me slip into something a little bit more colorful. So I had a crack up just now. It was pretty wild. But it's okay. Oh, no! Okay, well, that's fine. How's it going, everybody? I hope that you're well. Hey, Mother Nature. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Kitty Hannah can get the whole show in tonight. That's great. Threadist is here, and Myra, and Linda. I don't know. Well, I finally got the filter thing figured out, I think. But my very dark yellow sweater looks kind of weird. So good evening, my great cats. And Bridgewater and VA, I'm so glad. The music that I play is from the sound thing I subscribe to use music. Well, I mean, it's not free, but it's, as long as I pay the membership thing, I can use the music, whatever music I want from their collection, and it's pretty good. Epidemic Sound, it's pretty good. I like the slide guitar, blues stuff, gospel kind of roots stuff. So that's, we have plenty of it. Pemberito, pardon me. Yeah, the monument quilt, the monuments that were standing erect. I mean, we don't get too gross here, but that quilt was pretty weird. And by the way, I worked on my sound effects tonight. Yeah, we have the original siren back. We also have the original, yeah. It's like, they're kind of like old friends, you know? My hard drive crashed. We lost some stuff. The siren wasn't right. It wasn't right. But now it's back. Yeah, it's back. And what else? Oh, yeah. From The Princess Bride. I think everyone's going to be happy to hear it. I'm happy. Just a Guy Sewing, it's so good to see you. Akhil, it's so great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Not all the sound effects that were there in the beginning are here, but I'm so glad to see you. Happy Easter indeed. I'll wait to play the church sound. It's Saturday night. It's my favorite night. Threadist is on break from elder parent care. This show is so effing great. I didn't read that before I started, but that's pretty cool. I think it's good too. And let's see, Sandy tries. Hello. Hope you can stay awake. I get it. I mean, it's been a long week, and now it's the weekend. Christine. Hey, Christine. Fiandor coming in with the tunes. And Charles, hello. Happy birthday to your 11-year-old daughter. You know, we ought to have a birthday song. Wait a minute. We do have birthday emotes. Do you remember that? Maybe don't we have a birthday? 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 No. Cake? I thought I set those up. But at least we've got the Harriet Powers aardvark. So that's for your daughter. 11. I remember when my Uncle Dave said to me when I turned 10, he was like, "It's double digits here on out, kid. Congratulations." I was like, okay, I was 10. Didn't totally get it, but it was nice. He was pretty cool. My mom is a fraternal twin. I've mentioned it before, but she has a twin brother. It's crazy. He's made a quilt, yes. Dee Marie. 7 months, you'd think we had a handle on this. Listen, I'm still learning all of this stuff, as it says in the trailer, which is finished this week, which is exciting. Molly! Yes! Molly's here, and Elle Riggs. Padma's here. There's a banner on top of your Twitch computer saying that they've made difficult decision to stop supporting the Twitch desktop app. What? I don't know what it means. Jan Makes Stuff, hello. I don't know what that means. Why wasn't I informed? Why wasn't I consulted? That's interesting. You know, I don't use the desktop app. I don't. I think most people don't. I mean, well, clearly most people don't. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. If I haven't said it, Christmas, Quilty Mouse, Robin's Nest. Everybody, I'm so glad you're here. I have great content for you. It's ridiculous. Look at this. This is a crazy book that I found, on my adventures out there in the world. Sorry, green screen. It's called The Patchwork Quilt. I mean, it's really something. So I've got some pretty quilts to show you, log cabin quilts. They're just vintage quilts that are on sale or for sale on the internet. Some good looking log cabin quilts, and I'm going to read to you. I'm going to, at random, I'm just going to flip, and I don't know. What is this about? 1952. I don't know. That's what we do here. We just see what happens. It's Saturday night. It's crazy. I've got some crisps. I'm very not interested in crisps tonight because what's going on here? I had a lot of salt yesterday. Oh, I went to see Fran Lebowitz with my younger sister Rebecca. It was magic. And I asked Fran Lebowitz a question. And I know, if I haven't said hi to you, by the way, I'm going to say hi to you over the course of the show. Prairie Susie, Mark Wesley, QB Tara, I'm so glad you're here. Let's see, and Jan, wait a minute, Dusty Springfield will be coming back. She will be coming back. And lots of new things, lots of fun things. Myra, my friend's mom went into hospice. You made a quilt for her and delivered it today. You finished it at 3. You're back in time for the show. Mary says it was very stressful, but it's done. I'm so relieved it's been delivered in time. You started at April 1st at Quilt Camp. Damn, girl. That's impressive. Sorry, I kept the duck. Let's continue. So I saw Fran Lebowitz, and she's a hero. I mean, I love her so much. I've loved her for a long time. She doesn't care about my love. She doesn't want it. She doesn't need it. But I really admire her. She's a public intellectual, That's her job. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, I asked her a question. And I knew from seeing many YouTube videos of lectures and things that she's done and Q&A that she does. She had about a half an hour with the moderator, who's a commentator or a host on WBEZ. Forget who it was. But about a half an hour. And then she answered questions from the audience for a little over an hour. And I was going to ask her, here's what I was going to ask her. Not that I want to get into any... You saw, oh yeah, okay, Joyce. Hey, Tani, you saw my picture of me and my sister Rebecca on Instagram. It's true, I posted. If you don't follow me, please follow me at Yo Mary Fons. I don't like social media very much, but I do it, and perhaps you will find things of interest there. I try my best. So I was going to ask her about, I saw some, and it was going to be very succinct, but I didn't know there was a documentary out about Bill Cosby. It's called We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby. It's a very interesting short series about him, who, by the way, in the documentary, they show some footage that I have in my big folder of fascination. Bill Cosby and his wife, Camille? Is it Camille? Camilla? Collect art, at least they did, and I don't know if they still do, but they have many quilts. And I have found on archive.org a clip from, I think, the interview that they clipped too in the thing. And they're talking about their art collection, and there's a Faith Ringgold quilt behind him, and they have several quilts. Anyway, so I have this weird piece of footage, but I'm like, well, I don't know, do we really want to watch it? Anyway, so there is a connection to this show through what I'm sharing right now. But I saw some of this documentary, and then, I was... the Louis C.K. thing, like he won a Grammy, which I thought was weird. I have been a fan of his comedy for a long time. Anyway, my sister and my brother-in-law and Eric and I were all at dinner at their place a few weeks ago. And we got into a discussion about, is it okay to love the art and hate the artist? What do you do? I have my thoughts on this. Bill Cosby, I can't. But anyway, we won't go all into it. But I wanted to hear what Fran Lebowitz had to say about, can you love the art and hate the artist? But before I could ask it, and I was going to be very succinct because you do not want to go on and you don't want to talk about yourself with Fran Lebowitz. I mean, just get the question out. Another girl asked something similar. She used the words cancel culture, which I wasn't going to use. I'm going to stay away from that. But she asked it. So then I had to pivot. And what I did So Honeybee, the documentary won the Oscar? I didn't know that. That's awesome. I'm almost all the way through it. It's very well done. I think it's beautiful, and I think they're doing a really, really, really good job. So great. That's good that they won the Oscar. So I asked her instead, what is your impression of Chicago? Or what are your impressions of Chicago? And she said that she's like, I don't flatter anyone. I don't like to flatter anyone. It's not my style or something. I mean, she said everything just perfect. And she said, but I've always said that there are two real cities in America, two actual cities, New York and Chicago. She's like, I love Chicago. I don't know if she said I love it, but that was really nice. Kenny, hey Kenny, how's it going? Yeah, I didn't have dinner with Fran Lebowitz. I had dinner and then I saw Fran Lebowitz. Sonia, oh, it's great to see everybody. All right, so that was a good time, and yeah, I think that's it. Perhaps it's better I didn't. Well, I don't know. Perhaps it's not good that I bring up names like Bill Cosby and Louis C.K. on a live show. Yeah, it's not that kind of show. I'm not gonna go there. But anyway, seeing one of my heroes last night was pretty cool. So this show, if you've never seen it, is it's an exploration. It's not a presentation. I print off lots of stuff. I have notes. I have always my Quilt Nerd content plan. And this is episode 122. We do 3 shows a week. So we've been doing it for some months, and we learn more all the time, not just about how to use Twitch, but how to look at the world, basically. Looking at quilts is really looking at human history, and it's looking at art history and culture. We learn about, I say we learn about humanity and so forth, but like the quilt behind me, it's really something. And you see the maker's hand in it, and you see, I don't know, it's pretty magical. And so when we look at quilts, we get to explore people and explore their lives, or understand perhaps better our fellow man or woman in most cases, but not all. In fact, we talked about guys the other night in that monument quilt with the, I don't know. So you can watch the replay on the Twitch channel, on my Twitch channel, and then over time I upload episodes to YouTube. So anyway, there's a few announcements. So we talk about all of that on this show. That's what we do. And we don't have a time limit, so we go a few hours, and you can drop in, you can drop out, you can turn on, drop out, whatever your Saturday night is. And and come say hi in the chat and be here. Hey, Mary Kate. Yes. Dee Marie says, the presentations on this show are more interesting every time she sees one. That's great. Well, Dee Marie, you're a very valued person, and anybody who's subscribing, it's awesome. I appreciate it a lot. It's $4.99 a month. You don't have to watch ads. You encourage me greatly. We have a giveaway once we reach 200 subscribers. We got like 20 or so to go. I'm going to give away a quilt. You have to keep coming back. Subscribe if you want to know more. And but you don't have to subscribe. The show's always free, and it's 3 times a week: Tuesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Central, Saturday night at 8. I do a few announcements, and these are the announcements for tonight. Next week is Quilter's Newsletter Friday. Every other week, I do a bonus show, and I scan in an old issue of Quilter's Newsletter, which was a great quilt magazine. It was like the first national quilt publication. Actually, is that true? I better be careful. But there were like people who wrote newspaper articles, like columns in newspapers for a very long time. Nancy Cabot had a column about quilts in the Chicago Tribune for a long time. Patterns and things were published for a long time. But Quilter's Newsletter was started by Bonnie Lehman at her kitchen table in 1969, and it was a newsletter. It was like stapled, It was not Substack. The internet didn't exist. In fact, my mother has said the Quilter's Newsletter was the internet for quilt makers for a very long time until, the internet. Archetypal. Did I say archetypal? Karen. The Nerd Award. If you're the first person to look something up on this show, you get the Nerd Award, which is this. We have little things we do. That's what happens when you do things for a few months live on the internet. And you get gear from your husband, who's very proud of you for using Twitch. So we read an old issue of Quilter's newsletter to see what the quilt world was like back then. I think we're gonna go like late 80s. I have to check. I think we did 1999 last time. Anyway, it's been a few weeks. I'll check it out. Maybe we'll do a poll. And Mary Kate, you texted me. You texted me before the show about it. I saw the first line, something about Quilter's newsletter. I will look at your text. I was running around like a crazy gal getting this show together tonight. I had problems. But anyway, so Quilter's newsletter Friday, next Friday. Set your alarms at 7 p.m. Central. And then AQSG, the American Quilt Study Group. Briefly, I've been talking about this. 13 people have used the coupon code. 13 at least. American Quilt Study Group was founded by Sally Garoot in 1979, the year of my birth. And it is the original Quilt Nerd organization. I mean, if you watch this show with any regularity, I think you should be a member of AQSG. It's more expensive than Quilt Nerd, but you get a publication once a year, which is more than you get here now at this time. And American Quilt Study Group, you get blanket statements, which is their newsletter. You have opportunities to write things. You have opportunities to get a mentor who will help you write things or study things or research a topic in quilts. Molly and I are going to be presenting. I know, Molly, you're still working on travel stuff, but we are working on a thing. For AQSG, our poster presentation was accepted, and so we are going to deliver together in the flesh or just together with me as a representative this idea that we have that the quilt revival back in the 1970s, what's happening now cannot be. We just don't think. We're going to find out. We don't think that it can be residual momentum from something that happened or things that happened 50 years ago. We believe, and we talked about it on this show with many of you, it was an idea that was generated on this show live. We think it's very possible that we are experiencing a third wave, a very official third wave of interest in quilt making in America. No, it's this. It's Quilt Church. That's the shadow name for the show. Pardon me. You can go? Molly? Molly, what am I going to play right now? What? I don't know what to play. You can go. You're going to go. We're going to be in San Diego together in October, being nerdy with all of those scholar types. You're like an actual scholar. I'm a fan of history. I'm not a historian. I'm a fan of history. It's important. Molly is a librarian, like a knighted librarian. We're going to be there. My mom's going to be there, and my friend Jonathan's going to be there, and Mary Kay Waldvogel's going to be there, and Barbara Brackman's going to be there. Oh my God. That's awesome. We need to talk. Okay. So that, you know what, actually, and this is not a click. If you're new, I don't want it to feel like that. No one here wants to feel like that. Wants you to feel like that. The people who've been around, who've been growing and changing together with me and themselves. It's been something else. We've had streams crash. I've cried, not a lot, but a couple times, things like that. So we have a dialogue, but we want you here, and you can chat, and people are very welcome. But it's very exciting to see. Yes, we're going to cause some trouble. I think that's right. Thanks, Mark. But you should all feel a part of this thing, and it is really exciting. That the conversation we had a few months ago, Molly and I are like, yeah, man, that's really got legs. So we're going to do a survey, an actual official IAB survey. And it's exciting. So you should join AQSG. And for the first time, that organization, for the first time ever, they have a coupon code. and it's for us. It's only for us. And it's Quilt Nerd 15. And when you go to American Quilt Study Group and you enter in that coupon code, you get a friend level membership for $60 instead of $75. And you get a blanket statement thing, and you get to be part of my goal of getting members. I have a goal. So you should join. And you should be a part of that. And on this show, part of what you get is cool deals and stuff. Because I'm on the board of the Quilt Museum in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're going to get stuff through them too. I got the hookup, is what I'm saying. I got the hookup. So I think that's it. Those are the announcements. Let's get into, the color on the sweater looks a lot better now. It's where the cool nerds will be. L-Rigs. You got it. You know. So anyway, AQSG15 and get some money off a membership. Okay, so let us look at the quilt behind me. We always start with a different one. I've got just a little bit of a, hang on, a little bit of a green screen problem. It's probably because I flipped everything around right before the show began. Okay, let's get small. Help, I'm small. And we'll look at some wonderful stuff together. Okay, sorry, I'm getting smaller. Okay, so this quilt, Molly Squared, I'm also the American Studies and Gender Studies librarian, so it all works. What? Wait a minute, I knew that actually. But you do all the librarian. I don't want to say you control the library, but you are the goddess of the library in your area, university. In general, you are in charge, and it's hot. It's hot. Okay, so we always start with an intro quilt behind me. I had something else for you. And then I couldn't find my notes on it, and I thought, well, that's not the best. But I knew that the quilt that I had for you, which I might show you because it's so sweet and sort of jaunty, I knew that it came from Australia, and it came from the National Gallery, I believe, in Australia. And so I was like, oh dear, hang on. Yeah. I was like, I gotta get and I thought I had what I needed, the information about the quilt, and I didn't have it. And so I went to the National Gallery of Australia trying to find the information, and I couldn't, but I did find this quilt. And I think it's a good thing. It's a happy accident because this is pretty cool. This quilt is by a woman named Mary Jane Hannaford. And I am going to do this for us here. Sorry. So we can zoom in, although I have amazing detail shots of it. Yes! We love a museum that gives us really great high-res shots. So thank you, National Gallery of Australia. I have to read from my screen, which I don't love. I like to print things out, but sometimes we can't have everything we want. Whatever. And here we go. Okay. Yes, excellent. Let me get you guys back here where I can see you. Congrats to her. Wait a minute. Hey, just so Jane made it. Jane! Jay Densher is here. I don't know if I said hi to you. It's great to see you. Who just got tenure. Threadist, your sister-in-law just got tenure. That is awesome. That's wonderful. Whew. That is really, really great. I know what a big deal that is for a professor, an instructor, a person in academia. It's awesome. Good for her. Okay. Let's see what this quilt has to say for itself. So this quilt is, as I mentioned, it is in the collection of the NGA, which is it's Australia. It's in Australia. It's the National Gallery, and they have a very cool website, nga.gov.au. Very cool, and you can search the quilts in their collection. Don't do it now. Don't read ahead. But Mary Jane Hannaford there are a number of quilts by Mrs. Hannaford in their collection, and they are incredible. And some of you will remember, probably a lot of you will remember, because it wasn't too long ago, we looked at the quilts of Helen Fleenor, and there's something Fleenorian about the quilts that Mary Jane Hannaford made. But they're different. So let me go to this bit that I have about her. Sorry, this is why I print things out, because I don't care for having screens here, because I like to look at you in the chat, and it's hard to do that if I have things here. It doesn't matter. I don't have to talk through my tech problems. But anyway, here is what I'm going to do. This is the full quilt, and now I'm going to go through some detail shots while I read to you what I know about her. So, the skirts, yes. Okay, so from the NGA website, Mary Jane Hannaford's quilts were made when she was in her 80s, but are based on a workbook. Look at these birds. Look at the birds. based on a workbook of drawings and religious poems she completed in 1861. Oh, sorry, let me give you a date on this quilt. That would be helpful, would it not? And remember that Helen Fleenor also was made religious. Her faith was quite important to her. And hang on, I'm telling you, I had a different quilt queued up, so I apologize. I had to do this, but anyway, this was made in Helen Fleenor, by the way, was illiterate. She was not a reading person. She did not have reading, and she copied down Bible verses from the Bible without knowing what she was writing exactly. It's crazy. They do not. Hannaford was born in 1840. And she was born in England, and she went to Australia when she was 2 years old. So the Goodnight quilt, 1921. 1921, she made this quilt, okay? All right. Sorry, back to this. Mary Jane Hannaford. Hannaford believed we controlled our destiny in this world, and that we should be pious and God-fearing. She had a strong love for nature and a well-developed sense of humor. Interesting. A powerful mixture of realism and abstraction is evident in this quilt called the Goodnight quilt. Let's see what she says here. She says, "Omission isn't the thing you do, dear. It's the thing you have left undone, which gives you a bit of heartache at the setting of the sun. The tender word forgotten, the letter you did not write, the flower you might have sent, dear, are your haunting ghosts tonight. The stone you might have lifted out of a brother's way, for life is all too short, and sorrow is all too great. And it's not the thing you do, it's the thing you leave undone, which gives you the bit of heartache at the setting of the sun." That's intense. I mean, I hadn't read that before, because remember, this isn't a presentation. I mean, it's not a presentation. It's an exploration and a cold reading, basically. Molly, that's great. Molly's like, there, I said it. And scene. Very interesting. It's very beautiful. Look at this. She's written cockatoo. She's got the letters, the names of these animals. Native rat, native cat. Oh, no, I don't know. What is that? Native something. I wonder what her heartache was, says Charles. Agreed. But you know what? That's so interesting. So omission isn't the thing you do, it's the thing you have left undone. Interesting. I think of a sin of omission, which is like, when you don't, someone's like, who did this? And you're like, you don't say you did, anyway, whatever. Don't make me describe sin of omission off the cuff. But that's very interesting. So the the setting. So it's that which is left undone, right? The sun sets and it's heartache because you didn't do the things you were going to do. Which reminds me of one of my favorite poems of all time, which is Obeyed by Philip Larkin. And he says, "Most things will never happen. This one will." And he's talking about death. Most things may never happen. This one will, death will. So similar thing. Anyway, see, when I told you we talk about the world and we talk about humanity, I wasn't kidding. We've had 2 poems already, and a couple getting married. In cloth. Most of us get married in cloth, but they're getting married in cloth. Married Kate. Well, alrighty then. Oh, I finally fixed my filter. I'm so glad. Good Lord, I look tan instead of about to expire from anemia. It is sad. It is a bit sad. It's there's a longing of definitely regrets. Exactly, Quilty Mouse, regrets. The veil is sweet. You know, this looks like, I can read a little bit more about Hannaford here to you, but this looks like the Masterpiece Theater, Edward Gorey. That scared me, that Edward Gorey intro to Masterpiece Theater. My parents watched it. I was too young to deal with Edward Gorey's scary tombs and things, if you know what I'm talking about, you know, but Edward Gorey made creepy things in Masterpiece Theater. There was a woman in a veil, you know. It scared me. Doesn't it look like that? Oh, but it's wonderful. I mean, it's just great. It's so inky black, his thing. Okay, a powerful mixture of realism and abstraction, the National Gallery says. I think I read the sentence, but I'll do it again. It's evident in this quilt. Its aesthetic power transcends the fact of its inferior needlework. Uh-oh. We hate that. We hate that. And allows the personality of the maker to transmit itself to the modern viewer. The National Gallery is in Canberra, by the way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like most, not always. Sometimes the intro quilt on the show, you know, it goes quickly. Like we had Stephanie St. Meyer's quilt the other day, the one that looked like Metropolis or something. It seemed sort of like a computer, you know, that purple, that dark blue and purple one. And there wasn't a lot to say about it. I found it in a book. I thought it was wonderful, shared it with you, had a little bit to read, and we moved on. This one, there's a little more happening. But, you know, enjoy it, because I don't know what the content, I don't know what this is going to be like when I read that. Not the whole thing. The ostrich, look at this ostrich up here. Hang on. Look at that. The ostrich. Nothing inferior about them birds. Damn it, J. Dan Steer, you're absolutely right. Nothing. Exactly. Okay, Mr. Person or Ms. Person or whoever you are who wrote the copy for that. I mean, inferior needlework? I do object. I do object. Look at this. Look at, there's like knitting or laundry in her basket. You go ahead and try that. You go ahead and try to make a dog that small actually look like a dog, because I think it is a dog. Or a cat. But it doesn't, you know, we love Harriet very much, obviously. She has an emote in our program. But, you know, some of those Harriet Powers animals, you can't really tell. You know, we call it an aardvark, is it? We don't know. It's literally a star in this show, so we know how much we appreciate it. But I have to say, you know, that little animal looked pretty clearly like a dog or a cat. So how inferior is her needlework? Off to school. I tried to embroider my name on a quilt, and it was like, you know, you could hardly tell English was my first language. I mean, this is an elegant little tableau. Off to school. The man is walking a cat. Is the man walking a cat? What man was walking a cat? I love him. He is, well, it does look like a cat. I don't know. It looks a little like a Basenji dog or something. Anyway, this woman looks like she's in jail. I don't think she is. Look, I mean, okay, so anyway. Hey, Quilt Wiser. I hope that you enjoy the show. Thank you for following. When you follow, when you hit that little thing, you get a notification, as long as you have your phone set up for notifications properly, which I often don't. But you can get a notification when I go live. So that's nice, because if you like the show, you can be like, oh yeah, cool. Mary Fons is live with Quilt Nerd, and all those interesting people are watching an interesting show. I hope that's what you feel. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to put the link to this quilt in the chat box, because there's so much to look at, and I mean, we've got stuff. The other Mary Kate. I'm going to allow your comment. Mary Kate's comment was flagged. Wait, somebody did. I've got mods. Thank you, mods, by the way. Thank you for helping out. You do a lot of things that I really appreciate. I didn't even see what the I almost said sperm bot. I almost did. I almost said sperm bot. Why? Spam bot. I think it's because we were talking about it. What? I shouldn't have even told you that. But I actually do know why. I was looking at a quilt that had yeah, it was another quilt that could have been in the men show. Anyway, okay, anyway, let's continue. Maybe I'll show you that so you know what I'm talking about, because it sound crazy. But anyway, so moving on. Yes, so you think it's an emu, not an ostrich, did answer. You know what? I think you're right. I think there were different animals that we all saw. Sorry, to get back on track. So there's her signature, M. Hannaford. Now, I found something else, just one little brief paragraph about her on Red Pepper Quilt's blog as I was frantically searching for some things to share with you. And embroidery is not as easy as you think, says Mary Kate. Yep, it is hard to make it look good, I think, from when I tried it. This is what Red Pepper Quilt said briefly. Mary Jane Hannaford was an English immigrant from Devon, arriving with her parents and brother in Australia in 1842. Although not married, Mary Jane had a daughter in 1869 and subsequently 9 grandchildren for whom she made quilts. Oh, so she was not married. Interesting. In 1869. Interesting. She may have been, that may have been a big problem, I would imagine, in the community that she was in. We don't know. I don't know yet. I would like to know a lot more about this person. A lot more, because this is great. Wow. Ooh, unhappy honeymoon. Do you see that? Unhappy honeymoon. All of her quilts, so Mary Jane did not start making quilts until she was in her 80s, which was in the 1920s. All of her quilts feature free-form applique and tell stories about patriotism, religious faith, and the love of Australian wildlife and flowers. Pretty amazing. Look at this plaid that makes up his shirt. Unhappy honeymoon. Wow. That's a lot, That's a lot. I don't know. It just makes me really inspired to not worry so much about doing things perfectly. I don't know. I'm really big on that. I talk about it a lot because I think I really had to learn how to make quilts. I mean, it's true. I learned how to make quilts in front of millions of people. I did that with my mom on TV, and I did not have the option of really being super, super creative and being myself. I had to be creative within these parameters. I had to make quilts that could then be taught on the PBS show, or they could be in the magazine. And I've told this story before, and I don't tell it a lot because, who cares? I don't need to tell that all the time. But when I look at quilts like this, I get very happy and very excited because I feel free, because when you're making quilts in front of people and you have to get everything right, you actually don't learn that much. I learned a lot about making quilts, but I wasn't able to really explore, because if I made a quilt like this, I was wasting precious time because I had to make a quilt under a deadline so we could teach a particular tool or technique on the show. And so I had a job to do. And so I couldn't do anything of this kind, even though I longed to. I'm glad I didn't see quilts like this until later, because I might have been very unhappy doing what I did. But it wasn't until I got into quilt history that I really started to see, like, oh, wow, you can make quilts that look like cartoons, You can put a seagull on your quilt and you can label it seagull. And that's really exciting. Mary Kate understands everything was content. Everything was content, and it was spoken for. So look at that, Mary Jane Hannaford, aged 81 years, 1921. Well, she made this quilt when she was 81, so even if I didn't know what I know now, I've got 40 years to figure it out, Bonnie, hi Bonnie. If she had grandchildren, then at least she got to keep her daughter. I read this really sad book about a girl in Australia around that time who was forced to give up her daughter and later had an abusive husband. You're right, Bonnie. If she had grandchildren, that meant she got to keep her child, and she had a relationship with her. I think, it seems that way. Molly says, you all have such wonderful things to say. Very gifted lady, not only with a needle and thread. Molly says, please tell me there's a caption saying he's lazy. Yeah, that would be great. Like, what a jerk. And a little arrow. Exactly. So, okay. So let's figure this out. Oh, my grandmother was separated from her first 2 sons, says Dee Marie. If you make it through life, for any length of time, it's really hard. It's really, crazy things happen, and if you have people that love you and a community of people who really enjoy being around you, such as the people in the chat with each other, you're a lucky person indeed, because it's wild. It's a crack up. Okay, so thanks for looking at that quilt with me. I thought it was really cool. So as I do, looking at things out there in the world, in the wilds of the internet and the used bookstores and all of that, I found this book, The Patchwork Quilt by Netta Musket. Netta Musket. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. Here's the description of this book. And I thought, I was like, well, I want to read a little bit of this book at random, especially after I opened it. I was like, I'm going to read aloud a passage. I don't know which passage because we're just going to do it at random. I really did this afternoon. I came over to the office at like 4 o'clock because I needed to prepare the show. I wanted to fix the filter, get some sound effects back on the sound effect board. And I also wanted to figure out what passage from this book I was going to read. But you know what? I couldn't. I mean, it was not really a good use of my time. And I'm not, it's just, I don't know. I'll read some to you and you can see why I didn't want to really pour over the book in the precious time I had to find the perfect piece to read. Yeah, this book is really lovely. And the cool thing is, too, the other thing we're going to do tonight on the second half of the show is we're going to look at some wonderful quilts from the collection of Marjorie Childress. And if some of you out there were in QuiltCon in 2019, there was a special exhibit from the Marjorie Childress collection, and she spoke. I wasn't able to see her. There was some very good reason why I couldn't, but I led some the tours through the special exhibits and got to understand a little bit more about her collection and talk about some really amazing quilts that I read about and was able to just give a little bit more insight to on the tours. And I've never met Marjorie. I did drop her a note through Instagram. I never do that, but I thought it was the quickest way to let her know. I said, hey, I do this show and I'm going to share about some of your quilts tonight on the show. And the reason I'm doing it is because when I was looking for log cabin quilts, I wanted to have something visual for you while I read to you this text. And I thought, well, I don't know. I was thinking of doing a show on log cabin quilts or a segment on log cabin quilts at some point, but I didn't know what angle. Like, okay, log cabin quilts, what's the angle? What are you going to talk about? Because it's a lot of stuff out there about log cabin quilts. So I just, I'm not sure. So I thought, well, I'll get some really good log cabin quilts just to, as eye candy while I'm sharing some of this. And one of the really great log cabin quilts that I came upon was in the Marjorie Childress collection. And I was like, oh, nice. How about we do that? How about I share some of those quilts with the nerds? So that's what we're going to do. I love this. I mean, this is not the one. This is, I think the last one you'll see is the one that will lead us into the Marjorie Childress part of the show. So, who out there has made a log cabin quilt? Put a 1 in the chat if you've made a log cabin quilt. I've made many. I've made like 4. I'm going to put 4 ones in the chat. At least I've made 4. I love them. Okay, so here's what the description says of this book, The Patchwork Quilt by Netta Musket. And yes, if your name's Netta, you're gonna quilt, man. D. Marie 7, other Mary Kate, everybody. Yeah, and if you put a 1 in the chat, it doesn't mean you've made 1. It means that it's an affirmative, The Patchwork Quilt by Netta Musket, published in 1982. Oh, well, maybe it's set in the 50s. I don't know. Published in 1980. This is the large print edition. It was published by F.A. Thorpe in England. Interesting. No, damn it, I knew it. First published in 1952. There's actual sirens outside. Hang on, let me mute that. It's really loud. I think it's better. Sorry. Yeah, Jill, I know what quilt you're talking about. I made a quilt called Curved Log Cabin. It was in Quilty magazine. It was from a pattern by, I don't remember, but it's called Curved Log Cabin. And if you look for it on the internet, you'll find it. Blue circles, something. It was really, really neat. And my sister and my brother-in-law have that quilt in their home. They love it. But you search for that, Fons and Porter, Curved Log Cabin, you'll get there. It's great. It's a great log cabin design. Okay. First published in 1952 in London. First large print edition published in 1980. Okay. Susan's first marriage had been a disaster. Swept off her feet by gay, handsome Rex. It was published in 1952, so we know the words had different meanings at that time, that word in particular. Swept off her feet by gay, handsome Rex, it was to lead to a tragic death, as well as shaking Susan's faith in life. No longer could she trust any man. Then she met Michael, but the shadows of the past hung menacingly over their happiness, and his love turned to darkest jealousy as he learned about the other men in her life. But fate weaves unexpected patterns in the Patchwork Quilt. Unhappy honeymoon? Unhappy honeymoon! No! No! Oh my God. Oh, what? Okay. I'm getting a sage stick. Because you know what? Strange things happen on this show. And I have to say it every time because when I do expressions like that and I'm like, then it's like, what are you doing? What's the problem? Well, weird things happen on this show. They're not like malevolent things. They're very interesting, cool things. For example, what's happening right now. Earlier today, I was in the conference room of this shared office space to work on the content for the show. I told you that I was looking through this book. Well, one of the things that I looked at was the beginning, and then I looked at the middle. And what happens to the protagonist of this book? Well, she gets married. And on the night of her wedding, her husband takes her to a cabaret show, a burlesque cabaret show, whatever, in Paris. And she hates it. And they leave. And it was an unhappy honeymoon, you could say. And those were the words on that quilt earlier. Did you see that? I mean, I know if you've been here since the beginning, you did, but there was a quilt that said unhappy honeymoon with a picture. I mean, a couple rendered in an unhappy fashion. It's really weird. That wasn't even going to be the intro quilt. It's real, my great cats. Thank you. It's very strange. It's a very strange thing. I've come to the conclusion that I'm a weirdness magnet, says Kenny. My life is rather mundane, but weird things just happen around me. Listen, you are a figure in this show. You are a person. You are a person of consequence. And perhaps that's really true. You know what we should do? Mods, here's your latest thing. When Kenny's not here, take note. Do weird things happen? Maybe not. I don't doubt it. Some people are like that. I do think so. Okay, the Patchwork Quilt, complete and unabridged. Let's just see what this is like, okay? Because quilts just aren't pretty blankets. They're like an excuse to read. Excuse me. What's going on? They're an excuse to read strange books from the 1950s. Let's go here. Okay. Oh, I actually found a little folk art log cabin. Put that in there too. Okay. I guess we'll just begin at the beginning. Chapter 1. I'm not going to read that much, don't worry. Chapter 1. Pale blue chiffon. Susan woke with a feeling that something had happened. She had been 19 the day before, and Rex had happened. She could not think of the meeting with Rex as anything but a happening. Susan thought in capitals and quotation marks, and Rex had been both of those things in her mind now. Rex had happened to her. The party had been one of Solange's bright, sudden ideas, and she had swept them along to it, adoring middle-aged husband and rather shy, fascinated young stepdaughter. Swept them along to it. Okay. As she swept them along every hour of every day since that evening a year ago, when John Caffian had brought his little French bride home from Paris. Now, as I was skimming, I was like, wow, there's a lot of characters in this book. And I started to write down a list of all the names that I saw, just flipping. Susan, Rex, Michael, Solange, John, Marjorie, Florrie, Clara, Alice, Mrs. Drew, Vanya, Alan, Beryl. That's why I was like, I think I got to pick at random because there's so many characters and it's not a long book. They already did the hot dog dance? What? Oh my God. Jill. What? I have never heard that in my life. You're a little scamp is what you are. Not a tramp. I didn't say tramp, I said scamp. You're a little scamp. It's good to be a scamp. Okay, so here's what's going on. Susan's the protagonist. Her dad, John, married a trollop in Paris. It's true. So she has a stepmother, Solange, and Solange is Parisian. And I'm sure you'll figure that out. Lying in delicious half-wakefulness. Interesting. Susan let her mind drift back to that tormented few weeks when she had been waiting for Solange to arrive. There was something subtly exciting to her. It's all a little suggestive, isn't it? In deliberately holding back the moment when she would let herself think of Rex and what he had said to her the night before. What did he say? Susan's mother had died 4 years ago. An odd, pale, ineffectual sort of woman who had been regarded by her husband and only child with tolerant affection. Damn! And indulgence rather than with warm love. How did she die? She had always been ailing. And since Susan had been encouraged to stay out of the bedroom, which had become for the most part a sick room, since it was years since John Caffian had entered it as a lover, life closed with rather painful quickness over the small gap which Marjorie Caffian's death left temporarily. Ooh, it's actually pretty good. It is spicy, Pam. Oh, by the way, this is fabulous. This is... This is for sale. Most of these I got at auction sites like First Dibs and something, other John, something. Look at I have not really seen a quilt quite like this, I have to say. Look at the little courthouse steps blocks within. I'll zoom out again real quick. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? You think you've seen it all. I swear. You really think you... Exactly, L. Riggs. Kenny. It's really, really good. Chill with the hot dogs. Threadist. If I finally get a cat, maybe her name is Solange. It's a great name. Solange the singer. Solange the trollop, the French dancer. Listen, I have to tell you, from what I've seen in this book, the... SLUT shaming that happens, I'm like, wow, but it's 1952. Anyway, but this is pretty neat, isn't it? These little courthouse steps block inside these 9 patches, essentially. What's really fascinating about this quilt is that you don't have to... it's the same. If you can make a log cabin block, if you can make, a courthouse steps log cabin block, you can do it like this and win friends and influence people. You don't have to learn how to inset diamond border petty point scallops, to just be making something of beauty and interest and originality, It's really cool. I've never seen it. On point and such interesting results. And, it's a churn dash variation? What? Churn dash. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Right? With the black bars. Yeah? I think I see. Churn dash. Well, churn dash has triangles, though. Tell me more, Kenny. Tell me more. Well, interesting. The bars in between. Yeah, see, that's what I thought you meant. Yeah, I can see where you're going there. I can see where you're going there. It's really cool. The pieces do look teeny tiny. It's crazy. Okay. Hand-pieced. Elrig, surely hand-pieced, it would be hard to do that on a machine. I don't know. I feel like hand-piecing those little bars would be even worse. Anyway. Let's get back to shaming and not loving the mother, the dead mother. By the way, are you seeing the quilting? Are you seeing the quilting? It's amazing. Myra, that wonky log cabin, that pattern that I was talking about earlier, the curved log cabin, it's not wonky, but it's a really neat log cabin pattern. Fons and Porter. I made it from a pattern years ago. Look at these wonderful little bits of blue, you know, in the border, different blues. Love it. It's faded well. It looks a little bit like denim. Okay. Susan had been not quite 15 when her mother died. Her mother that she didn't love, still at boarding school. But her father had yielded to her persuasions and allowing her to leave a year later, so that for 2 years the girl had acted as a housekeeper and companion to the warm-hearted, indulgent man she adored. Her dad? I think it's her dad. I don't know. Okay, yeah, this is great. Okay, good. Yeah, we're getting to something good. They had fun together. He had a job with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. That odd combination of ministries. His job was connected with fruit trees and fruit crops, and it took him all over the country. And during those 2 years, Susan was with him. They stayed in little country hotels or as guests of farmers in isolated farmhouses, or now and then in the big cities with trips abroad, occasionally when he was sent to investigate new methods, new diseases, or new cures. But Susan had not been with him when, during a visit to a large fruit farm near Paris, he had met and fallen headlong in love with Solange. How oddly unlike him to have found a wife in a Parisian cabaret. That's all I'm reading. I mean, you guys, I mean, if you're loving it, I'll read more. But like, you know, it reminds me actually. So Honey says, sorry, I missed it. What's the relationship between quilts and the book you're reading? So Honey, there's not. It's just that I wanted to read, I wanted to expose you to this book because it's wild. It's called The Patchwork Quilt. It's a romance novel from 1952. So I thought the only thing I could really do visually for you, because I'm not going to just read like without anything, it's like to show you patchwork quilts. And I, you know, log cabin quilts, I've kind of, you know, let's look at them sometime, but I didn't have an angle for log cabin quilts. It was like, okay, log cabin quilts, now what? So I was like, okay, well, I'll show log cabins while I read this book. I don't know. So that's the connection. Thin. It's thin. But this is an interesting one. So I tried to pick ones that are interesting. Do you see what they've done here? Do you see that in the very middle of the square, it's amazing. Yes, Kenny. Yes, it is. You want more? Listen, if you all want a little more, it is, I mean, it's not that bad. I just don't want you to be like, wow, I gotta go. My mom reminds me, sorry, let me finish this thought. So the log cabin block, we can all see it. It's right here, okay? And the reason you get that sort of little curvy thing happening, that almost rounded thing, is because in the center of the log cabin block, the only difference is that instead of a square piece of fabric, a square patch, they have made a half square triangle. And they did, Pam. Yeah, and that's what it is. Courthouse steps on Marble. Yep, absolutely. So isn't that interesting? I mean, it's really, I had never seen that either. So I tried to, you know, pick log cabin quilts that were sort of different in a way. So that one seems pretty different to me. Yeah, HST is your favorite block ever. I love an HST. So that is really interesting. Look at the effect, you know. It just changes it. It just changes. I love it too. It's really cool. It's really a neat idea. Okay. So, yeah. I liked this detail shot because it shows these shirting prints, which I love so much. I'm going to flip this around. Yeah. I don't want to change it. I just want to rotate it. You won't let me do it? Okay, hang on. All right. So mill engravings, that's what these particular shirting prints are called, that have these, you see them a lot, like the little ships, really finely done ships, or, hey Myra, thank you. Ships or dogs, or, little men on horses, or horseshoes and things. Really, they're my favorite fabrics. They're shirting prints, but even in particular these mill engravings, because they were engraved at the fabric mills and printed using that technique. Okay, is that it? No, that can't be. Oh yeah, it's because I did that. I don't want to have the copy. I don't need it. Oh no. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh, hey, thanks, Pam. Okay, so here's what's going on here. I am going to suggest to you all that if you would like to read more of the book, you can get it at apebooks.com. Oh, no, actually, you can get it through this link, okay? quiltnerd.link/Netta That will be live after the show, because I didn't do it ahead of time. So if you want to get that, that's an affiliate link, and you can purchase the book and tell me what happens in it. I don't know. I feel like I might read it, just because, it's really interesting how terrible she is about Solange. She really is like, how dare you, be with this woman? She's this trollop. And it was, it was kind of gross. It was definitely of its time. And I was a little bit, I was a little grossed out about how it was, the treatment of this woman who was dancing in a Paris cafe, or in a Paris, theater or something. It was like, it was just that time when there wasn't much patience for women who didn't do what they were supposed to do, according to society, right? Okay. So she wrote more than 60 books. That is true. A nun maker, very interesting. Linda, you've got to get a cat and name it Solange. She did. She wrote, lots of books. There's some of them are listed here. And she was probably very interesting. A novelist in the 50s who's writing romance novels, so many of them. I'm sure she was an interesting person, right? Oh, great. Kitty Hannah. I'm glad today is an audible kind of night. I'm listening while painting my stairwell. Good luck. I painted a stairwell in London, and it broke me. I'll never do it again. I can never paint another apartment. And I say that every time, and then I always end up doing it. Okay. So thank you, Netta Musket, for your romance novel from 1952. All right. So this now we're going to take a look at some quilts. Not all of the quilts that are or are owned or were part of the collection of Marjorie Childress. Marjorie Childress lives in the Southwest. I believe she is in New Mexico. We will know, because we're going to read something. We're going to read from the remarks she gave at QuiltCon at 2016, because her website, Anonymous Quilt, is great, and it's anonymousquilt.com. Okay, don't read it. Anonymousquilt.com. She has a great about page. She has the Childress collection. She has some information about her collection, which I'll read to you, so you don't have to read it. And Kitty can keep painting, and you're going to hear everything. And then she has a link, tab, reading room, and that's where I found this material that I'll be reading to you tonight. It's her remarks that she gave at QuiltCon. That's going to make up the bulk of what I'll share with you. But first, before I show you some of these quilts, and some of them I got from her Facebook page, which it doesn't seem she's terribly active on that, but those come a little bit later. I'll tell you what we're looking at. This quilt is unconventional and unexpected, and it's interesting you mentioned that, Charles, because a number of her quilts appeared in Rod Kirikoff's book, Unconventional and Unexpected. And one of them, I forget which, it's been a minute since we worked on the second edition, because the second edition of that book was published by Quilt Folk and Schiffer, and I remember one of the things we had to do with the second edition is update some of the ownership. Some of the quilts had different ownership at this time. The ownership had changed, or they were in different collections, or things like that, and so we had to update. There's a word for what I'm saying, but we had to do that. And I remember either Rod had sold one of the quilts in the book to Marjorie, or Marjorie had sold one of the quilts to him. So they're friends. They have known each other for some time. They're colleagues at least. And so some of the quilts in that book are hers, or ones that he bought from her. So other quilts that you'll see were quilts she was selling. I found that she had an Etsy shop a few years ago where she was selling off pieces of her collection, and all of those pieces are gone. There is nothing in her Etsy shop as far as I could see. And so this is a little bit about the Marjorie Childress collection from Ms. Childress's website. There are many antique and vintage American quilts that are signed and dated by their makers. But most are anonymous, found unsigned and disconnected from their families of origin. This anonymity holds across class, race, and geography for the vast majority of quilts found in small shops and flea markets, at auctions, both online and in communities. The lack of signatures or known makers of most quilts creates, in a sense, one body of domestic creative work, a product of women collectively. That body of work is what this website reflects upon and celebrates. I started collecting quilts, says Marjorie Childress, around 2000, and currently have around 300. I've created, I don't know when she wrote this piece. Okay. Maybe 2017, actually. Yeah, 2017, it does say. So she was writing this in 2017. So it's been 5 years. Who knows how many quilts she has now? Maybe one day she will chat with us on the show. I currently have around 300, she says. I've created this website as a venue for publicly sharing my collection and thoughts about American quilts. Please weigh in with your knowledge or ideas about quilts as I share my collection and thoughts on this site in the coming years. So as you perhaps can see already, Marjorie Childress's collection is really special because the eye that she has for these quilts is similar, I'd say, to Rod Kirikoff's eye for them. Like their taste is similar. There's something, if I was going to compare the collections, I am with Marjorie on like every quilt she has, and Rod Kirikoff, like, yes, of course, but I feel like even and this is a compliment because I love weird quilts. Our slogan around here is keep quilts weird. So it's like some of like this quilt. Look at this up here. It says, "Merry Christmas, Elizabeth, 1978." Isn't that great? Merry Christmas, Elizabeth, 1978. And this quilt is bananas. It's just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's so cool. Isn't it great? There's just nothing that this woman did that was like the way she was supposed to do it, I don't even know what to say. It's sublime. It defies like explanation. It's wonderful. I love her. It was a grandmother making it for a granddaughter. I feel like they must have had a very cool connection, or her granddaughter was like, my grandmother is crazy. Look at this crazy quilt she gave me. I don't even know if it's a quilt. What is it? But we love it, right? We love it. It's so great. think this one was at QuiltCon. I can't remember. So, yeah, it's really, really great. Oh, wow, Mary Kate says, seriously, I am about at this point with wanting to use or lose my stash. Girl. Changes are coming. Changes are coming. I don't want to buy any fabric. I don't. I have a big bucket of it. Do I have everything, that I need? Like, oh, by the way, my Ukraine quilt, there's no way I'm going to get a quilt done in the next, 2 months. There's no way. I have so much to do. There's no way. So I have a quilt I'm going to send to Ukraine. And I have somebody, I will share with everybody an email I got suggesting a place that I could send a quilt to Ukraine, via. I have a number of quilts. I don't use them. I don't need them. I am going to send a quilt that is finished this week to Ukraine, because I am not going to sit around and be like, I wanted to make a quilt for Ukraine, but I just didn't get it done. The road to hell, it's paved with UFOs. But I'm with you, Mary Kate. What I'm trying to say is that I understand. It's I can't just go buy more charm packs and stuff. I just don't. I don't know. But if people do, oh my God, please do. We want to have fabric available. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Quilts like the one we just saw are kind of inspiring because she didn't go buy a charm pack. So this quilt, you guys, is really, really something. Oh, by the way, Marjorie Childress's Instagram, I think she's fairly active. It's Mr. Chili 9. That's whoops, hold on. Mr. Chili 9 is Marjorie Childress IG. And her website is anonymousquilt.com. Okay? I know, Jill. I mean, I love fabric too. And if I was in a quilt shop, I would probably go crazy. So this quilt, by the way, is a princess feather. And there's not much about it at her website, but there's 4 pictures of this quilt. And it's applique. Let me show you. It was purchased in Tennessee, she says, on the site. And look at that stitching. Isn't that remarkable? When I saw this, let me go back real quick. I thought it was wool. I mean, definitely. And then when I saw that it was fabric, just, cotton, sorry, I was blown away. So when Marjorie, she goes for the weird stuff, and I love it. Okay, so I'm going to read to you here. The following remarks were made at a presentation at QuiltCon in 2019 on February 21st in Nashville, Tennessee, in conjunction with with a special exhibit of my quilts, says Marjorie. And this was on her website. The presentation concluded with a few additional slides of quilts, and in giving the talk, I riffed on what is written here. In all, 23 quilts were exhibited at the convention. Mm-hmm. And then she says, when I first heard how many people had registered for my presentation, oh, look, this is a quilt within a quilt. Look at that. You all know about this. Some of you have seen this, but an old quilt used as batting in a quilt. Elle Riggs, I believe that she is just a collector. I don't know for sure, but there isn't anything on her website that says my quilts, as far as I know. So I'm pretty sure she's just a collector. Get this. I quickly remembered my audience would be full of quilt lovers, she's saying. She was nervous about how many people were there. Like me, like a quilt lover like me. I'm a quilt lover, not an academic or a quilt maker. We have an answer. Okay. My name is Marjorie Childress, a nerdy quilt fangirl. Yes! Out in New Mexico, who collects antique and vintage quilts. Isn't that great? Here's a photo. Oh wait, hold on. I adopted the moniker anonymous quilt as a framing term for my collection because the vast majority of vintage and antique quilts are unsigned and undated. Collectors of vintage and antique quilts are a passionate bunch. There's a subset among us, historians, who spend a lot of time researching the makers of signed quilts or make them known. to make them known. I'm thankful for their work and encourage you all to go see a really beautiful exhibit at the Tennessee State Museum right now. This was several years ago. But for myself, I'm always happy to acquire a signed quilt. The anonymity of most vintage and antique quilts is inescapable. It's that anonymity that inspires my imagination. And of course, we're all about the artist once known description. But of course, we know what she's talking about. And yes. Here are two quilts that are obviously the product of both vision and ambition. On the left, a clear, original, thought out, and intentional quilt, unsigned. So this is the one she was talking about there. All right? Wait, no. Hang on. Yes. Sorry. Okay, let's look at this one. Sorry. I tried to number everything correctly, but it was a little crazy. Okay. On the right is a rare example, circa 1920 to 1930, of a bullseye quilt. Found in Rhode Island, the small number of similar bullseye quilts we know of originated in two different eras from Leonardsville, Pennsylvania. It took an amazing amount of skill to make this quilt. It is unarguably a masterpiece. No one knows who made it, and that is not uncommon. In essence, the lack of signage in American quilts has created a collective body of women's creative work. It's our heritage, and it's this that I'm most interested in. You guys, this quilt, so the picture is not super high resolution, but clearly, like this, I know, isn't it? I love that you use that little monkey emote. I'm going to do it too. Is it what? Yeah. Yo, Mary. What? Yeah. Bullseye. I haven't seen many of these either. We've seen quilts that are medallions with lots of pieces in them, but look at this thing. Unsigned. Unsigned. It's almost like, how could you do it? I don't mean how could you make the quilt, because how could you make the quilt? But how could you make it and not put your name on it? Even if it wasn't a thing that you did much, because we know makers didn't much most of the time, as Marjorie says. But how could you bear to not make it known that you made that? Or that your mother and your daughters made it, or that your family made it, or the women at church that you sew with made it. It really is crazy. It's crazy. Hand-woven baskets from Rwanda reminds Myra of those gorgeous work. Yeah, that's interesting. It does have that vibe. It does have that basket vibe. Dee Marie, same. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It does have that basket weaving vibe. That's a very, very cool observation. Myra, I like that a lot. Okay. Let's continue. Oh, that's great. Hang on, let me get, so this is Q. I really trying to do my best in getting these lined up. Okay. Much of the debate about whether quilts are art seems oriented toward convincing the art world, quote unquote, to hang quilts on art museum walls. It's a worthy pursuit I won't knock, says Marjorie Childress, quilt collector. They do belong there, and I do treat my quilts as art, hanging them on a wall. When I was invited to present a special exhibit here at QuiltCon 2019, I spent some time thinking through how I might want to narrow my collection to one set, coming up with various ideas based on time period, fabric, technique, etc. Ultimately, I wanted to bring quilts that would inspire today's modern quilters. That was my first criteria. Here are two favorite, the end result was a group that spans time, geography, technique, and fabric, and obvious socio-economic strata. What they all have in common is strong design, from explicit compositional choices to sophisticated combinations of color and shape. Here is a classic oversized courthouse step quilt, made mid-century with that lovely Baptist fan stitching. Yeah. Takes a note. Charles takes a note. Green and pink. Hell yeah. This, and the thing is that this is, the pine burr, yep, can't hear you. Padma, by the way, about that non-signed bullseye quilt, I figure it's because everyone in their family knew who made it. Whoever she gave it to knew she made it, and the name was probably known for several generations. And they probably thought no one would ever let it out of the family, right? And then they did. Green is red's complement, and the thing is it's like green and pink. It is a good color combination, but this in particular, this like bubblegum pink and like evergreen, but like it's like a sea, it's like a water evergreen, or it's not pine green, but evergreen. Christmas tree green and bubblegum pink. Okay. And then the next one she has here is, hold on. Structured. Oh yeah, this is great. This quilt is ridiculous. Look at this. On the left, it's a stunning example of what I call a structured, improvised patchwork made from some of the earliest synthetic fabric. You guys, can you believe this? Hang on. I want to take this down. Yeah, okay. The artistry demonstrated historically by quilters is very clear. The high geometry, the sophisticated choices of color, shape, scale, both realist and abstract depictions of the natural world. It's tantalizing, a great pastime actually, to speculate about how the quilt maker intended her quilt to be viewed. All of this said, I don't find the conversation about quilts as art all that resonant when the conversation is divorced from the context of the lived reality of women's lives. Yes! I mean, that's what I said in my Quilts as Art lecture. We keep trying to be art. We're as good as art. We deserve to be considered art. It's like we're barking up the tree that, like, we don't have to bark up. We don't have to be given the benediction. We don't have to be blessed by the art world to be amazing. It's quilts. It's people making quilts, women and men. And we don't have to like get their blessing to be amazing. And I think sometimes that pursuit is kind of, it's folly. Here's Marjorie. Okay, so QC6. Okay. And she says, let's face it, the road to women's equality is long and ongoing. My collection spans several social movements for women's equality. I'm going to hide the chat really quick. Hang on. Kate Jackson would love this quilt because this is there's a three-pronged image. Hang on one second. But don't let me forget to make it come back. Okay. Those women's movements sought to open up public spaces to women. Among other things, the right to vote, the right not to be wards of their husbands or fathers. Oh my God, like in here, right? That's a little creepy too, because that was a very different time. And well, it's not that creepy, but you know what I'm saying. They wanted access to jobs and so forth. The quilts I brought this week don't include album quilts, but I want to show you this one. Made in the 1970s, it memorializes the women's movement of that era. Can you guys believe this Ms. Magazine block? Are you kidding me? It's crazy. The women who made it were in a Southern California applique class, much like the workshops many of you take at QuiltCon. The theme was simply women. The blocks depict women doing both traditional women's work, quote unquote, as well as men's work. One a linesman and one a carpenter. And of course, the women who made the top were engaged in traditional women's work, part of an embracing, so to speak, of women's work in a decade now referred to as, containing the Great Quilt Revival. You can read more about this quilt top in the books Quilts and Human Rights, published by University of Nebraska Press. I did look to see if I could find a better, higher quality image of this quilt, and I couldn't easily, and I had to move on, but sounds like there's more about it in that book. Storytelling, this quilt top tells a story, doesn't it? Storytelling is just one of the many pastimes that women have pursued through quilt making. It's within the full context of the intersection of quilts and women's lives that I find the artistry of quilts so resonant. Free to be you and me. Do y'all remember Free to be? Free to be, there you go, Threadist. There you go. Free to be you and me. Okay. Look at this. This is great. It's great. Oh, look, she's pregnant. Look, she's pregnant down there. Isn't that sweet? So sweet. Okay. Let me go over here. Okay, yeah, great. This is wild. This is really wild. On the left here, a quilt that's strikingly evocative of remembering a loved one, with the classic velvet angel in the center. The peace sign and a name embroidered right on the angel, Neil. That's what this says right up here, Neil. Near the top is a small patch. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. Right on the angel. Wait a minute. It says Neil right on the angel. Oh, I don't know if I can see that. Near the top is a small patch that says male, the kind you'd see on a denim jacket. See, the picture isn't high enough res to see that. But I think Neil is what it says here in the corner. I think so. Yeah, exactly. Mary Kate, if you could sing from Free to Be You and Me and it could come through the void here, I would 1000% pause and have you do that. You know I'm telling the truth. Or I'm not kidding. So this is like a velvet, angel kind of thing. And look at the piecing around it. So, the collection is really like there are these famous collections, the Kirikov collection, the Poos collection, the Poos collection, the Kay and what is her sister? The Triplet sisters. There's just two of them. It's always kind of funny. The Holstein collection. Mary Kay Waldvogel has a collection of quilts. I'm trying to think who else. There's many quilt collections. So the Cargo collection, the Artist and Robert James collection, like all these, kind of really prominent quilt collectors. And I'm sure there's a lot of quilt collectors that we don't know about, who have amazing collections that maybe we'll find out about later. But Marjorie Childress is one of those people. When you hear about, quilt collectors that are collecting now and collecting really interesting things, whoops, I got to put the chat back. She's in there. You will definitely, I know the angel creeps me out too. You'll definitely see her again. It will be one of those things. You'll see her name again, or you'll see quilts. You'll see her referenced, and you'll be like, I know about that. I learned about her on Quilt Nerd and her collection. And now that you've heard about it, you'll probably see it everywhere, right? This person's collection, or you'll hear about it. Okay. And then this quilt is composed of men's ties and crochet. Yeah. Each block is meticulously designed. Perhaps a daughter made this quilt to remember her parents. We can't know because it's anonymous, but it's strongly resonant of memory. Sometimes a quilt was just a quilt meant for warmth, even today, if we treat it as art. Even if we treat it as art today. Yeah, really interesting. Look at all these ties. You can see the tie material, it's easy to see those little geometric... Oh, sorry. Oh, great. Okay, great. All right. On the left, sorry, these were her slides and I separated them out, so that doesn't matter. A turn of the century wool patchwork. That's what we're looking at now. Made for warmth. The back is a rustic, rich, home-dyed blue. What really sets this quilt apart, maybe why it was saved so well, are the dense, long ties that add incredible texture. It must have been lovely on a bed. That's interesting. What sets this quilt apart and maybe why it was saved so well are the dense, long ties. Interesting. This is very much a quilt you could see in Unconventional and Unexpected, in the Kirikov book for sure. He's super into the hairy quilts, you could call them. Okay. And let me see here. Look at the way where the red is. It's just so great. It's like those two pieces of red. They're perfect. They're just perfect where they are. And there's that one bit of Kelly green up there. I don't know. It just never ceases to amaze me how these pops of color, they just always seem exactly where they ought to be. And there's not too much, They just had a little bit of red here, a little bit of red there. Okay. And this quilt, this is interesting. Oh, I wish there was a better... We'll talk about Lindsay quilts at some point. Mary Kay has looked at a lot at Lindsay quilts. So this is a turn of the century. Oh, sorry. This is a Southern Lindsay quilt, and I'm saying Lindsay like Lindsay. Made from rough, plain, homespun weave of wool and cotton, most likely originating from the southern United States, circa 1870. So Linsey Woolsey. Linsey Woolsey is a fabric, and the warp is wool and the weft is cotton, I think, or either, it's one of those. So it's two different fibers, and it's really interesting. So believe it or not, the rough fabric was used in clothing. And yeah, it's real rough. This quilt was likely made of cast-off clothing, while the back is made of two striped panels of the homespun fabric. I remember this quilt at QuiltCon. I remember it. Dyed rich, earthy colors with great tonal quality. It's simply beautiful and an important piece of our heritage. To learn more about these quilts, I recommend the work of Mary Kay Waldvogel, a quilt historian from Tennessee. Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. And I was with Mary Kay at the show, and she was looking at this, and she was like, this is a very, very special Lindsay quilt. There, you don't see them a lot. Maybe because they were used up. I don't know. Mary Kay could tell us, but this is, she was like, this is really, really something. Okay. Let me go to, okay, so that was the last of the log cabin. This is how I even got here to begin with. Here it is. This is the log cabin that started it all. This log cabin quilt is a good example of how we don't know the intentions of a quilt maker, right? When she was making a quilt, the great majority of quilts were meant to be placed on beds. She says, I encourage you all to have a look at them in that way if you're primarily in the habit of hanging quilts on your wall. The amazing pop art geometry of your favorite quilt will take on a new dimension. And this log cabin quilt is a good example. A one-of-a-kind design in a classic genre. It's one of the first I ever purchased, and I used to hang it on my wall a lot when I lived in a bigger space. Then one day I put it over my bed, and the clear lines that ran through it were even more striking, if you can believe that. Isn't that cool? I mean, wow. Once again, I never seen a log cabin like that. I mean, this is a screenshot moment, is it not? Like, I think everyone should take a picture of this quilt and make one of them. It's just so cool. It does the depth. Who said that? Depth. Yeah, JD on Steer, look at the illusion of depth. It looks like ripples of water on a pond or something. Yes, like steps to a basement. Exactly. Really, really something. I mean, this looks like an art quilt, in the Quilt National books that I keep ordering and prepping for you all. Yeah. My great cats. Yes. Cheer for the quilt. Cheer for the quilt. Okay, so here are just a few more for you from her website, anonymousquilt.com. This one's great. She's got a number of them here, but on her website, but I only picked a few more because I didn't know how much of that book we'd read. So Marjorie says of this one, this is a small-scale quilt meant to hang on the wall. I consider this piece an early example of psychedelic art, which developed in the late 1960s, 1970s. The quilter's colors, fabric choices, and motifs, paisley sky, bright rainbow, happy flowers, and floating fluffy clouds, evoke the counterculture art vibe of the period. Yeah. Mushrooms are a common theme, found in crewel and needlework, or ceramic art of the 70s. And they're also often found in fabric prints. But while there were a lot of quilt patterns published in magazines of the era that were whimsical, depicting landscapes with suns, mountains, and rainbows, I've yet to see one that centered this floating variety of psilocybin mushrooms. For this reason, I believe this is an original design, but please point me to other examples if you have them. I'd love to see them. It's great. We had drugs have come up in this show before. See, if I say drugs, then there's a problem with YouTube and stuff like that. But we have talked about quilts that related to drugs. Okay. So this work is what this is just This is crazy. And this is what we're going to end on tonight. This is the big finish, okay? Pepperito. Cheers for pronunciation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know anything about those kinds of mushrooms. This is the Pennsylvania Dutch Tree of Life quilt, made in 1965. I will just let you feast your eyes on this thing. So this is Marjorie speaking. In her 1965 letter addressed Dear Child, Nancy Maud Payne de Phillips wrote to her niece about 2 art pieces she had created, inspired by the art of the Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, you know that letter? There are pictures. Marjorie has pictures of the letter on her website. Yeah. So what I'm reading to you, from this is actual stuff from the letter. Okay? Hang on, let me do this, and let me do this, and then I'll flip. Yeah, okay. Hang on. All right, well, let's go back. There's just this one picture of the quilt. But, quote from the letter, "There is no other tapestry in the world exactly like it," says the maker, Nancy Maud. "I created it completely in my own mind. I know from Dutch history that dove, tulips, hearts, unicorns, and the tulip tree planted in the old black iron pots were their chief expressions of art. So I created one for you and your sister. Now this tapestry I made for sister is more colorful, but I like yours the best. You have no idea how much work is on them," she said. The quilt, and this is now back to Marjorie, the quilt was created by the great aunt of a Marshall, Texas family that is rich in quilts. My sister acquired it, says Marjorie, at an estate sale in early 2017 after the great niece of Nancy de Phillips passed away. I traded my sister 5 of my best antique quilts to bring it home with me. But it's not an East Texas quilt. The maker was born in Oklahoma Territory in 1897 and grew up in Quay County, New Mexico. She died in Arkansas. Being out in New Mexico, I don't get to estate sales my sister goes to in Northeast Texas, where there's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to quilts. Oh yeah, we know about Texas. So I end up buying quilts from all over the country, from online markets mostly. It's rare to get the name of a quilt maker, even when I purchase a quilt from someone who says they got it from an estate sale. So I was pretty thrilled. Look at that. Look at this thing, this motif over here, that star in the circle. I was thrilled when my sister was able to point me to one of the family members who gave me Nancy's name and a little bit of history. And there's a little bit more about it. She says it doesn't get much better than a letter by a quilt maker describing not only the quilt itself, but proclaiming it's something created from their very own mind and a collector's item to boot. It's pretty wonderful. She got a good deal. I agree, Elle Riggs. I mean, when I look at stuff for like the Patchwork and Prose block of the month thing with Quilt Folk, like I've read a fair amount about quilts and literature and stuff like that, but people didn't write a lot about the quilt making process. Quilt makers, they were making their quilts, and sometimes they were like, oh, I have to make more quilts today, or I have to. Mother says we have to work on the quilt, or it's just we worked on this quilt, and there's not there's not a lot about process and stuff. Like there's patterns and there's like stuff, but there's not like I worked on this quilt and here's what I was thinking about when I was working on it, or I did it. I worked on this heart. I gave this heart good cleavage. I feel like my heart has good cleavage in it. It's not really like that. And in diaries and things, I mean, sometimes you get that. And I'm not an expert on quilts in diaries, but from what I know and from what Marjorie said, it's like if you get somebody who's made a quilt in the past talking about how they made it, talking about the design and their process, it's pretty special. And if it stayed with the quilt, it's definitely special. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. And yes, there's a similar one out there somewhere. Wild. Totally wild. Y'all, I am so glad to have spent time with you tonight. Wait, let me get big. Let me get big. So, you all are, you're now learned about the Childress collection. A little bit about that. AnonymousQuilts.com is her website. And, there are books out there. How the quilt actually comes into this, like, I don't know. I kept scanning for the word quilt, to see if we could get that, but didn't see it. I want to talk to you just very quickly, just tease you. I want to tease you. I have been looking at quilts from Quilt National. This is from Quilt National in 95. Quilt National 2003, sorry. And I mean, I'm just going bananas. Look at this thing. Look at this quilt. Hang on. Well, here's a log cabin. How about that? Look at that log cabin. Anyway, we're gonna have a blast this coming week. There's so much great stuff to show you. I'm freaking out. There's a lot. And I was thinking, I was like, happy to do some log cabin quilts tonight because I'm really into these art quilts right now, like from the 80s in particular, and like earlier. So I hope it's okay. Like I always want to have content that was wide ranging. I don't want to get stuck in one thing at all. This is not a show about art quilts in the 70s and 80s, but I gotta be careful, or it might be. But I just love that era right now because there's just a lot there, and I'm excited about it. This was published in, I'll have affiliate links for everyone soon. 85, Quilt National in 1985. I mean, pretty thrilling. So I'll see you on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And I just love hanging out with y'all. And I hope that you have a great remainder of the weekend. And I will see you next week. And great. I just love doing it. So I'll see you on Tuesday, and be safe out there and be good. And yeah. Bye.